just the past 15 minutes, Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts temporarily pausing a judge's order that required a deported Maryland man to be returned to the U.S. by tonight. It means for now, Kilmar Abrego Garcia will not be coming back to the United States.
So this is part of the major developments in the case Fox 5 has stayed ahead of from the very start.
Let's get to Chief Legal Correspondent Katie Barlow live outside the Supreme Court with the latest details. Katie?
Hey, good evening, ladies. As you said, just about 15 minutes ago, Chief Justice John Roberts issued what's called an administrative stay. It's a temporary pause that kind of freezes everything in place and stays or pauses Judge Paula Xinis' order that would have required Kilmar Abrego Garcia to be returned to the United States by midnight tonight. This comes as the Department of Justice asked the Supreme Court to step in here and put that pause order in place. Now, the chief got this request because he's actually in charge of requests that come up from the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, overseeing cases out of Maryland. And basically what happens now is he will refer the matter to the full court for consideration. And they seem to be interested in moving quickly here, sensitive to the timeline, because the Chief Justice called for a response by 5 o'clock tomorrow. But it turns out Abrego Garcia's legal team didn't need that long, because just minutes ago, they filed their response to the Department of Justice saying that this order should be allowed to go forward and that Abrego Garcia should be returned by midnight tonight in their filing. They called this a case one of one. This is a one-off, essentially, where the government admitted a mistake in deporting Abrego Garcia to his home country of El Salvador when there was an order from an immigration judge saying specifically that he cannot be deported to El Salvador. So right now, that means the full court will consider both sides' responses, and now we will see how long it takes the court, now that they have heard from both sides, to make this decision. Typically, in this case, when you hear from both sides, the government, who makes the initial request, they get a little while to issue what's called a surreply. Basically, they get to come back with their arguments one more time before the court decides. And so there's likely some conversations going on right now about how quickly that can happen, and then the court will likely issue their decision. But again, this is just a temporary pause. This is not the justice saying how he thinks about the issue. This just preserves the status quo for now while the justices consider what and how to do it next.
So it's a complicated situation, to say the least, Katie. And just for clarification, he was in the country illegally. So does he have the very same rights and constitutional protections as Americans do?
So that's a good question that a lot of folks have been asking. And the Supreme Court has been clear when it comes at least to due process, not necessarily every constitutional right, that's less clear. But when it comes to due process, which in this case would mean a chance for Abrego Garcia to say to the folks who were deporting him, hey, I have a court order that says I'm not supposed to be deported to El Salvador. Or in the case of other individuals who say they aren't gang members, to say, hey, I'm not a member of this gang. That's a part of due process. And the Supreme Court has said that even people who are in the country illegally, illegal aliens, are entitled to due process protections once they cross the boundary of the United States. So yes, he does enjoy at least respect to due process before he is deported, and that's part of what was violated here.
Well, this is Stuart Ryan with an additional Ryan Report Extra. Breaking news. The Supreme Court has just put on hold the return order from Federal District Court Judge Xinis in Maryland, thereby giving the administration more time to answer to the judge's order. This is going to be a showdown. Will the Supreme Court take the side of our corrupt administration, or will it back its own judicial system? What the answer is, I don't know. But I think the Supreme Court has given the administration, the Trump administration, another 24 hours to answer to the judge's order, trying to get Mr. Garcia back from that hellhole, disgusting Seacot prison in El Salvador, where horrific things take place and this man's life is at stake, and his family's life is at stake and at risk. What will the Supreme Court do? We're soon going to find out if even the fascist six have a stop point, a point at which, beyond which, they won't go. Talk to you later.